babe with the power.
What power?
The power of voodoo.
Hoodoo.
You do.
Remind me of the babe.
Do what? Remind me of the babe. Let the team down. Welcome to the Pixel Pop Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Toby. This fortnight, I am joined by the well-seasoned Ethan.
Well, I like well-seasoned. Sounds good.
And the slightly undercooked Jesse.
So I was left too long to bake.
Yep. This fortnight, our topic of conversation will be the future of movies and specifically how we watch them. So a few random predictions and I guess guesses on where we think things might be going. We've also got a couple of spoiler-free movie reviews for you in the form of Ready Player One and A Quiet Place. And of course, we're bringing you all the latest news and gossip and nonsense out of Hollywood. So we've got a bit to get through. So let's just jump straight into that. If you would take us away, please, Ethan.
So our first bit of news is probably the biggest bit of news we've had since the last podcast. And that is Captain Marvel has resumed filming again. And as we know, Brie Larson is playing Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Ben Mendelsohn is playing the villain. Jude Law is playing Marvel, and we've got some really interesting. Well, and we know Samuel L. Jackson will be back as Nick Fury. We have some more news that Clark Gregg will be back as a young Agent Phil Coulson. We've got, I think it's Digimon Hunso, who played Korath.
I can't remember.
He played Korath.
Yes. Is he the same character, or is it just the
same character?
Interesting.
And Lee Pace will be back as Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Of course, because this is going to deal with Kree and Skrull and all that nonsense as well.
It's going to be the Kree-Skrull War.
That's why.
This will deal with all that.
Yep.
And it'll actually be like the first time, other than Loki, that a villain has been brought back from another movie, considering no others have.
Yeah.
Oh, would you list his claw count?
Yeah, well, he wasn't a villain in.
That's true.
Age of Ultron.
Do you think we'll ever see Red Skull again?
I hope so.
I hope so too. But
there's still people saying that he died at the end of Captain America, but Marvel released the prelude comics for Infinity War, going over that sort of what happened with each character, and it pretty much implied that he didn't die. He just got zapped into space.
Because wasn't Hugo Weaving a little reluctant initially to come back?
Yeah. He signed on for 3 movies. He said that if he's happy not to return, but he's under contract. So if they ask him, then he has to because of his contract. But I'm sure they could just chuck someone else in the prosthetic and there you go. It's done.
Possibly. But I mean, it was more to it than just the prosthetic, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, all right.
He signed on for 3. So there's still a chance. I hope that he's going to show up maybe a little bit. We might get a bit of a backstory with Thanos and the showing when Red Skull gets teleported to. We might get that for like one scene in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Even if we get that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, alright.
The Bohemian Rhapsody movie, which was supposed to be coming out December 25th this year, has now been brought forward to November 2nd. Following that, we have delays. X-Men Dark Phoenix was supposed to come out, and I think it was late November, around November 25th, but now that's coming out February 14th next year. New Mutants, which was originally supposed to come out August this year, it then got delayed till February 22nd next year, has now been delayed till August 2nd next year. So it's been delayed a whole year.
Worrying.
Yep.
Apparently,
but they're doing quite a lot of work, like post-filming work on that. I think like there's the CG character and reshoots. Yeah. Look, to be fair, I'm not too worried. If it's a case of it's going to make a better movie, then I'm all for it.
Well, the part of the reshoots is to make the film scarier.
Yeah, because from what I read, the initial because the people that did the trailer apparently were the same people who'd done It or whatever have you, and the trailer was sort of more scary than the movie was supposed to be. But because people responded so well to the trailer, apparently, they then went back and decided to make the movie more scary.
Yeah, and they're adding in a whole character, a character that was originally deemed too expensive because the whole character was CGI. They're now putting that character in.
Right.
They've originally they'd already filmed the post-credits teaser for New Mutants, but now they've scrapped it and changed it. Originally, the post-credits teaser was going to be John Hamm as Mr. Sinister.
Yeah.
Ah.
But now they've scrapped that completely, and now Antonio Banderas has come in as a different character. Alright, our next bit of news is Pedro Pascal, who you might know from Game of Thrones, Narcos, Kingsman 2, has been cast in Wonder Woman 2.
Hooray!
No one knows who he is, but he's in that. The rumor is he's playing the male cheetah.
Okay.
That's our only bit of DC news this week, thankfully. So we'll
Actually, no, I think there's a bit I stuck on near the end, but anyway.
I fucking hope not.
Oh no!
Gotta find more DC news to keep Ethan happy.
DC
Alright,
shuts
next
down
one.
overnight.
Taika Waititi's upcoming movie called Jojo Rabbit, set during World War II. It's cast Scarlett Johansson. She's playing the female lead in the movie. And the movie is about... She plays the mother of a young boy in Hitler's army who discovers that his son is hiding a Jewish boy in their house. This is a Disney movie. Taika Waititi is also starring in the movie as the German kid's imaginary friend who's Hitler.
This is the most bizarre story.
Wait a minute. Is this actually, like, straight up a Disney film? It's not a subsidiary?
No,
This
like,
is
Disney
pretty-
had tried to go a new direction.
This is pretty dark and heavy for Disney.
Disney's. I'm pretty sure it's Disney.
What's it
It's
rated?
also pretty bold of Disney to finally start acknowledging stuff to do with like anti-Semitism and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
I just like
Given
I'm
their
surprised it's not like being released under one of their subsidiaries, because normally you
I'm
put
just having a
Disney
look
on
now.
something, people expect it to be, you know, a lighthearted comedy, and I mean, I guess it could still be a lighthearted comedy, but normally
Okay,
things
no,
like
it's not Disney. Well,
yeah, that makes more sense.
it's Fox Searchlight.
Yeah,
I was just about to say, I bet they put it under Fox.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's Disney, but it's under
They'll
Fox.
bury it under Fox. in case
But
it's
actually
shit.
putting that Disney with the castle and the little tinkles all over it
Yeah.
on top of, like, you know, this is how I joined Hitler's army and killed people, it's not going to go down well.
So they have like the Disney castle come up, and then the star goes over, and a fucking like World War II bomber flies over the top of the castle, and we go into the movie that way.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Apparently,
not good.
Taika Waititi's written this movie. He's directing it. He also turned down other movies so he could make this movie. He said he'll even turn down Star Wars so he could do this.
Wow.
He says the young German boy conjures up Waititi's Hitler when his loneliness and confusion creates a mix between his father and the Hitler decepted in Nazi propaganda.
Okay.
Waititi insisted that his Hitler will not be remotely sympathetic to real-life dictator, but a goofy and charming figment of the protagonist's imagination.
Okay. It just like I don't mean to nitpick, but in that case, what's the point of making it Hitler at all?
I don't know.
Like I just
I
don't
don't know.
understand that. Then
Probably just I'm being like, wouldn't it be funny if the kid had an imaginary friend that was Hitler? Let's just do that.
I have a bad
it's not
feeling
Hitler,
that
it's goofy Hitler.
social justice warriors jumping down this movie's throat.
So it's called Jojo Rabbit. Scarlett Johansson's in it. He's in it. That's all we know.
You know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to wait for some trailers.
Yeah.
I'll know after the first trailer if this is something I want to watch or not.
I'm intrigued just because this is the most bizarre movie concept I've heard in a while.
Yeah. Anyway,
Tommy Knockers. It and the Conjuring producers have teaming up for a new adaptation of Stephen King's book. Now I'm interested in this because the original Tommy Knockers scared the shit out of me when I was younger.
What
Were
the
you
fuck out
4?
of me?
I mean, you're already young.
I think I was like 8 or 9 when I watched.
Well, no
Tommy
wonder it
Knockers.
scared you. But
Maybe
it's a pretty. Most of the King stuff that came out in the 90s is. I mean, you can read Jesse's extensive article, included links below, right? It was pretty.
Expensive and painful.
Yeah, a lot of it in the 90s is pretty subpar.
I think I lost like 3 years of my life watching
Well,
Stephen King
exactly,
movies.
because they're all made direct to TV, so they couldn't be too like graphic or gory or scary or anything like that. But I mean, this is the thing. Now that we've had the success of It, you know, which was the highest grossing R-rated horror film I think of all time, everyone's jumping on the bandwagon.
R-rated. Oh no, sorry. No, carry on.
Yeah, so to skip, and we'll skip to another bit of news. Spielberg, who has had the rights to the Talisman since 1984, is now starting to eye off the possibility of going into production with that as well, which would be...
Finally.
That would be something I'm a lot more... I mean, Tommy Knocker's cool, but Talisman has been something I've been wanting for a very long time.
Yeah. And
Because
hopefully
the
they
story
won't
is just so interesting. Because it's not all King either. He wrote that with Straub.
That's right. Yeah, and Peter Straub's quite a good writer
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And they pass Talisman back and forth.
Another bit of news that came out, which I forgot to post: Stephen King's The Stand to be adapted as a 10-hour limited series by CBS All Access.
Yeah. Oh, look, dude, just type in Stephen King into IMDb and have a look at everything that's in pre-production. It's
No.
It's crazy.
Fucking floodgates.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so
Well, I
much
think,
interest in his stuff again that it's just everybody's licensing everything.
Well, It Chapter 2 starts production really soon as well.
We're still waiting for Castle Rock on Hulu.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what it is, yeah.
that's kind of gotten buried a little bit.
Yeah, it shouldn't have. Wait till it comes out and then it'll just be everywhere. I'm looking
I thought
forward
it had
to
a
it.
release date.
It did. So, but anyway, Tommy Knockers,
Yeah.
that's cool. Keen to see.
Yep.
I'm keen to see King stuff being done well.
I'm
essentially.
keen to see it being done with a modern group of filmmakers because it seems like in the 90s people just sort of scrambled to duplicate his writing and not actually think about how it looked on screen, which is probably why it all came out really shit.
Alright, next bit of news. Ant-Man and the Wasp have had some reshoots happen because due to test screenings, people didn't like the intro to the movie, which was all set in South America, the entire opening sequence. So they're reshooting that and changing it.
Fair enough. I
Which
mean, that's
is-
why you have test screenings, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why Deadpool went back and did some reshoots as well, because test
Yep.
screenings.
Little did they know that test screening was like the movie's actually fine, and the whole test screening audience was all DC people. They're all
Were you one of them,
planted there
Jesse?
to fuck it.
Is that why?
Yeah, I was there.
Another bit of news. Spider-Man Homecoming 2, Matt Damon has apparently passed on the villain role.
Aw.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what the
He's
villain
already-
is.
No, he's already been in a movie. We don't need him again.
They've
He was
now been eyeing off
after
Ben
Loki.
Affleck to cover his
Oh.
role.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Can't get
He-
David, but it's good Affleck.
Alright, next up. I don't quite know what was going on with this, but...
Well, it was. I'll do this one. It was. They released a couple of images and said, "Hey, we've got some more news coming soon," and that was about it. It was just a mega tease for a Bill and Ted 3,
Yeah, that's what it was.
and it had a couple of shots of Old Mate and John Wick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that they'll CGI George Carlin into it, a la Grand Moff Tarkin?
Yeah, I mean that was a big loss, wasn't it? I mean, because he was such a
was.
pivotal part. Yeah, look, I know if you remember the earlier movies, there's those sort of you see images of Bill and Ted in like light, and it's sort of a projection showing them in the future or the past. I think it's in the future or something. You could do something like that where he's sort of immortalized in a scene, which would be kind of a nice homage.
It would be, as long as they don't feature him too much.
No, it would just be something like they go to the Hall of Legends or whatever, and you see, an animated sort of thing of him. Would be neat. It'd be interesting. Anyway, it's really too early. Apparently, despite what you might think, apparently Keanu Reeves has been keen on the idea for quite a while.
Yeah.
Which is
he
funny
likes
because you
Bill
sort
and
of
Ted.
think about where his career has gone and what he's doing, and being that he was the sort of the second fiddle in those movies and played sort of a real twit. And even in the photos, he's not wearing black. This is like Keanu's like always wearing black. So it could be interesting. I look, of course, there's going to be the potential for it to be crap and the rose-colored glasses won't get us through. But I'll still go watch it. I'd be keen.
I'm excited to see it.
I've watched the
I'm a
originals a long
shamed Bill
time.
and Ted fan, so
Yeah.
The writers and director of Doctor Strange have talked about what they want to do for Doctor Strange 2. It hasn't been confirmed that they're going to do one yet, so we don't know if they will. But they said that Baron Mordo will most likely be back in some sort of small villainous role, probably gearing him up for Doctor Strange 3. But that they want to use Nightmare, who's another one of Doctor Strange's big enemies, and he's the ruler of the Dream Dimension. So that could be where
Right.
Doctor Strange 2 goes after that.
Anyway.
Moving on next, Amazon and their purchase of the rights to the Lord of the Rings show, which they acquired the rights for $250 million. I think they had a bidding war with several other companies, probably Netflix and that were among it. They paid $250 million to acquire the rights, and now they're going to put it into production for 5 seasons. All up, the budget for the 5 seasons will be north of $1 billion, which
Yep.
makes it the most expensive TV show ever made.
sweet baby Jesus.
Now,
Eating out
as I
Game of
interpreted
Thrones.
this too, this isn't a series based in the Lord of the Rings world, but rather this is actually the Lord of the Rings story in a TV series format. Is the way I'm reading it. Because when I first heard
That's
it, I'm
what I
thinking,
understood it as too.
yeah, when I first heard about it, I'm like, oh, okay, so they're going to do a series that's based in Middle Earth, but it's original stories or, unfinished tales, whatever. But more reading, it really says to me what we're getting here is a reboot from the 99-2000 Lord of the Rings film. And I guess it's been 18 years, so... What's interesting, and there's some rumors, there's nothing solid yet, but there's some rumors that Peter Jackson is in talks with Amazon to be coming on board as a producer, which means that they would get access to a lot of his knowledge, which would probably shortcut a lot of things. So it's like, well, how do you make orcs work, and how do you make swords look good or whatever? Like, he would be
not only that,
very useful.
The deal that they acquired says that they can use materials from the films.
Yes.
People don't quite know exactly what that means, but that could mean costumes, props, sets.
Yeah. I hope that they're using
the
John Howe's costume design notes and his backdrop designs, because John Howe was really integral to the look of the Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah,
so I
honestly think that's going to be Weta Workshop's production stuff, like, because if why remake all, I mean, they made so much stuff for those movies, why remake it all? If it's in storage and it's there, why remake it all if you can just lease it? It makes so much more sense.
Lease sets that are still there, all that stuff.
But it should be interesting. I mean, like, they're throwing a lot of money at it, and I guess if you're doing a TV series too, it means you get to do things that the movies can't, like Tom Bombadil, for instance.
Yeah,
fucking Tom Bombadil.
Well, the poor bastard's never been put on film, so...
I know, but he's one of those things that I've said to people, like, I want to see Tom Bombadil, but I just thought, I wanted to see them try and do Tom Bombadil. But I don't see him and Goldberry ever showing up.
No, but, I mean, again, if you're doing five seasons, and we don't know how many episodes are in a season, and we don't know, how long those episodes run for, but... you might see them in this. I mean, I guess Amazon are looking to make the definitive version, so should be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. On to the next bit of news. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is rumored to be renewed for a season 6, which is interesting because of how this season's been going. It's been also rumored to be the last season. Mm-hmm. Which means if they do a season 6, it's going to have a lot of implications that happen in Infinity War and Avengers 4 will have to be dealt with in this as well.
Yep.
Well, maybe.
It's a maybe. Obviously, because it lost a lot of traction. Apparently, season 5, the ratings spiked back up quite a bit.
They have.
So I guess that's why it's a maybe on season 6. So I still haven't caught up with any of the more recent stuff, but that's still interesting.
Going how season 5 is going, it's entirely possible that Infinity War and Avengers 4 will have no impact on the show whatsoever.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all I'll say, but that's yeah. You linked something in there called CB Strike.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, there was a little spoiler. Some people have been mining IMDb, and apparently, while Samuel Jackson is not credited in Infinity War at the moment, his assistants are. So it's like assistant to Sam Jackson, makeup artist for Sam Jackson, listed as credits on Infinity War. So it means, I guess, that he'll be popping up at some point, somewhere, which is interesting. The other thing I linked for, you might know this, Jesse, is CB Strike, which is the detective novels that were penned by the lady who did Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. Yes. She did a pseudo, alternate name, whatever, pen name or whatever, so they're turning it into a series, and the first trailer for that has been revealed already, and we'll put that in the article so you can click that and watch that yourself. Looks interesting. It's certainly a lot more mature than the Harry Potter stuff, so he seems to be...
It kind of went unnoticed too. Like, you can really tell the power of IP names. Like, it was something that a lot of people didn't know about. If it had Harry Potter written on it, it would have gotten way more views.
Carl Urban has been cast to appear in The Boys, which is another TV series Amazon is doing. The Boys is a comic book series, if you're not familiar with it. I can't remember if it's DC. I think it was DC. I might be wrong. It might have been Marvel.
I have
think
no
so.
idea. It sounds familiar, but I don't.
Yeah, okay,
know.
so I mean, I can't remember which house it is, but I remember reading some of the comics, and it's in the vein of Watchmen in terms of the maturity level. Like, it's quite graphic. I remember a scene. Sorry.
It's Wildstorm and Dynamite Entertainment.
Dynamite, yeah. So I distinctly remember a scene in the comic books where they're sitting around in their superhero outfits, and there's a. I don't think they'll put these sort of scenes in film, but they're giving the female superhero a hard time because her costume isn't revealing enough, and they modify it sort of on the spot with scissors, so that it's like a skimpy, like, swimsuit with low cut cleavage and all this. Like, it's full of sex. It's full of really extreme, like, Deadpool level violence. It's
I don't think that kind of scene's gonna fly in this century.
No,
anymore.
it's full of really some pretty, like, extreme language and bondage and all sorts of, like, it's pretty pretty intense. Like, it's very mature. It would be on par with sort of a Max series. In my opinion, from what I read. And I didn't read a lot, but they seem to be getting a few names attached to this now. It could be a big one. So
because Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, they're developing the series. And they also did The Preacher, and the guy who wrote The Boys was also the creator of Preacher as well, Garth Ennis.
That's probably where I know that from then.
Yeah, he also did Judge Dredd, 2000 AD.
Yes, I was going to say he was part of 2000 AD comics.
Hellblazer,
which, again, 2000 AD,
Preacher,
if you've read any of it, is very mature in a lot of
He wrote a bunch of Marvel comics.
It would make sense too, because 2000 AD pretty much spawned all the great comic book innovators of our time ever.
He did Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one I'm definitely keen to check out. So, but I mean, still early days, the casting, but yeah. And then the other one, I never read the comic book, but I know of it, which is Why the Last Man.
This has been in development for so long.
Yeah, well, FX had the rights to it and had been sitting there doing nothing with it for a few years. Apparently, they've now booked a pilot, or they've ordered a pilot to be made. So we might see that in the next sort of 18 months, 2 years, I guess, if it goes ahead.
They did the same thing with another comic series called Powers. They filmed the pilot 2 or 3 times, and all times they did it, they didn't like it. So they then sold the rights off to PlayStation, and PlayStation made 2 series of it.
Yep.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's not a bad show.
But yeah, I mean, they're all things to keep an eye out for. There's some interesting stuff coming our way, as always. That's about all the news. So we'll jump into some movie reviews, and these are going to be spoiler-free, so you don't have to worry about spoilers. And let's start off with something you guys have both seen, and that's Ready Player One. Now, I've heard a lot about this film, but the thing is, I don't actually know what the premise of the film is. I know there's a VR helmet, and I know there's a lot of homages and Easter eggs, but can you tell me what it is?
Oh, I don't need to. That you just said the premise there.
Okay, so it's a kid in a room who puts a helmet on and goes and plays, 80s movies and music videos.
Bam! $20 million.
So the premise is, world's getting overpopulated. People are pretty much stacking up where they live. Everyone's playing VR. The creator of the VR program, he's dead, but he has pretty much said that he's hidden 3 keys in the VR world. Whoever finds the 3 keys will then unlock an Easter egg, and when you get the Easter egg, you then get like $500 billion, and you then control the entire Oasis, which is the VR program. So the whole premise of the movie is them trying to find all these keys while also working against a company who Ben Mendelsohn runs, who's also trying to do the same thing so that that company can control all of it.
So, Jesse, can you answer me honestly? Is this just Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Because that's what it sounds like. It's a kid looking for a golden ticket, right? So he can own the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory. But then there's the competing chocolate factory.
It's Willy Wonka.
It really is, isn't it?
It's the same premise as Willy Wonka.
I will say this, though.
It's very, very good.
What are you going to say, Jesse?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, that's it. That's all I had to say was it's actually very, very good.
I will say the movie it's good. It's good for just to sit down, watch. There's a lot going on, and you'll probably find that looking for all your favorite characters and the Easter eggs in the movie distracts you from the overall plot, but that doesn't matter because you get to see some awesome looking characters from your games actually on screen, and that's all I really cared about.
Yeah, and the plot's pretty easy to follow so that you
Some shit doesn't
Won't
make sense.
really
So,
be distracted
are
by
most
the
of the
visual.
Easter eggs video games, more movies, or both?
No, it's
Or-
like everything.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so it's just massive pop culture porn.
yeah.
It really is. It's probably the biggest pop culture like clash of stuff I've
And I
ever
will
seen
say this:
in a
it
movie.
has one of the best uses in a PG-13 movie of the use of the word "fuck" because they
Yes,
can use
it
it once.
does. It really does.
And the one use in this movie is fucking great.
But it was perfectly timed too.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
You can
That's
say
good.
the F word in PG-13 now?
They do it in
really?
the X-Men movies.
Oh, hang on, what's it rated? That means it's what, M over here, right?
Yeah, M.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, okay.
So
fair
you
enough.
get one.
I was going to say, I'm thinking like F word and PG, it's like, full
we're
house.
delicate
And one of the
flowers,
twins is
actually.
like, says the fuck word. I'm like, what? This is not what I
It has
signed
to
in
be
for.
used in a. It has to be used in a non sort of sexual term as well.
Yeah.
That's the other guideline to it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's,
cool.
it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I
Okay.
just,
Yeah.
I just
So
wanna
it's
go through and
how far
slow
in the
it down.
future are we? We're like, 20 years on-
2045, 2047, around there.
Okay, so about 30 years.
2045. Yeah.
Right, okay. And the
It's-
VR setup, I mean, is it like state of the art wireless, U-Butte?
Oh
barely feel
no,
it.
no.
It's kind of like what you got now.
Yeah, like it's pretty
In a way.
it's pretty achievable. Like it's not too much of a leap to say that in the next 20 years we could have something like the Oasis.
Well, we're already halfway. I haven't seen it, but I mean, we've got, pretty large virtual environments already where you can mingle
Yeah.
with thousands
But
of people, like VR chat or whatever it is that everyone's playing these days.
Yeah, that's actually what my little brother said to me in the cinema. He leaned over to me and he goes, "This is like VR chat." I was like,
Yeah.
It was.
it's exactly
Especially when he's looking at me, like choosing his avatar. I'm like, oh, this is just like VR chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It
we're
was
kind of
weird.
there already. And I mean, if he's not using,
Yeah.
we're already starting to see more wireless headsets than we are wired. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
so unless
I-
they've kept all the wires to be grungy.
For the like there is definitely a
You know what I mean? Like Alien,
an
like you look
old
at
world.
Aliens and Alien and all that,
Yeah.
you're like, there's no reason for that to be
That's
huge
exactly
and dirty,
what that
but
is.
it's kind of grungy, so I get it.
And Ready Player One really I noticed that too. Like I looked at it and thought I can tell that this is a future that's like it's supposed to be showing you that the world's kind of shitty looking now because that's part of its message, but it's also because it's heavily ingrained in 80s stuff and like old dirty future tech was so big in the 80s.
yeah.
So yeah, like it made a lot of sense. But I was super worried about Ready Player One because everyone that I spoke to that saw it before me was like, "Oh no, go see it, it's really good." And I kept thinking, is this just hype because it's riding on nostalgia? Because the trailers made me worry because I thought, is this movie going to be absolute shit? But it's just got so much stuff that people love that they don't think about it.
Well, nostalgia's a huge thing these days, so it
That's-
probably is
that's-
running
yeah.
out of that.
So it's the fucking Duffer Brothers' fault.
Right, but that's not the case. It stands on its own 2 feet.
I thought, yeah, I was happy that that it's. I thought it was a pretty deep.
Like,
Like
I
you
guess the
said,
question is,
it's a
if you pulled
perfectly good
every
movie.
single Easter egg out, would it still be a good film?
It would be fine. It wouldn't be as good, but it would be.
Right,
fine.
so if you stripped all of the Easter eggs out, you say, what, 3 out of 5? With all the Easter eggs, 4 out of 5?
Yeah, that's around about where I'd be because it's
Okay.
actually got some really nice stuff in there about, like not just as a story. It feels very Steven Spielbergy, but it's also got this cool
Funny
little like
that.
sub message about meeting people, like how you interact socially and how it's okay to meet people online. And but at the same time, it also has this message about like get out there and live in the real world. Don't make this your whole world.
Don't live in your mum's basement.
Yeah, it was a really good balance that I was not expecting to see in a movie. I was like, holy shit, they actually did it.
Cool. And what about you, Ethan? Where would you rate this film?
I would say probably a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
If
Okay.
it didn't have all the pop culture Easter eggs and shit, I probably wouldn't watch it. So
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think I'll see it at the cinema, but yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye out for it on home release. All right. Well, you haven't seen this one, Ethan, but Jesse has, and that's A Quiet Place, which is seeming to get a lot of chatter and attention online. So I'm guessing it's good. What can you tell us about it, spoiler free?
I have my own quiet place, so it's all right.
Yeah.
Well, I like in writing an article for it. It's hard to be objective because so far, A Quiet Place is my favorite movie I've seen all year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're only 4 months in though, so,
So
that's
it's
not-
a horror, it's a horror film, right? It's a scary flick.
It's not like I said it. When I wrote it, I wrote about it. I said it's a drama thriller because it's kind of a horror movie, but it's not real. I'd say it's more of a thriller than a horror movie.
Okay, so that's more tension and building and that sort
Oh
of
yeah,
stuff.
it's really good tension. It's like it's the same kind of level as like Get Out as far as tension. It's really well done.
Which I still haven't seen because it's not on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Never gonna
So
live that down.
so we're talking like 10 Cloverfield Lane kind of thriller, or
Yes, yeah, exactly like that. Like I'd
I mean,
actually
10
say
Cloverfield Lane obviously has monsters per se, but they're not until like the last 60 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, and it's for me, I would say I loved 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like I really loved it.
it just got added to
Same
Netflix.
with
Actually, yeah, just to slide this in too, there was some news I saw online too. There was a short conversation and it never eventuated where they were talking about this movie, A Quiet Place, being a part of the Cloverfield universe. Did you see
I
that?
heard that too.
Yeah, it obviously didn't happen.
Been rumored. It was rumored like back in like January that it might actually be one, but they never went through with it. And I was talking to Lucas about it today, and he said that at one part during the movie, he thought, "Oh fuck, they're going to reveal this as the Cloverfield movie." But they didn't.
Yeah, I had that funny feeling too, and I was really hoping they didn't.
So I said to them, I was like, "I'll probably realize what part it is whenever I watch it."
Yeah,
Right. But to be clear though, you've said it's not a Cloverfield movie.
not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, unless there's some bizarre little Easter egg that'll sort of
If
surface
there's
later.
some really
Obscure
flimsy
thing. Well, I mean,
Yeah, like
Ethan,
really
Ethan and
flimsy
Lucas have
connection.
data mined the shit out of those other movies, and they find things
Yeah.
like a rapper in the background on the floor or something that links to
There
something
might have been
somewhere
something
else.
like that I missed. I just frankly.
But nothing
didn't-
obvious.
It's not a Cloverfield movie at all. I can tell you.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I like the Cloverfield pantheon, but this is perfect by itself.
So this is
It
Emily
really-
Blunt, isn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah, which she's a
so-
great actress. And who's the male lead?
John
John
Krasinski.
Her
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
married.
yeah, that's right. Yes, of course. Yeah,
And he wrote and directed this.
right. See,
Which
the
went
kissing
very
scenes are
unnoticed.
extensive.
Yeah, and like I was walking into it going like, God, I hope this is good, because when the trailers first came out, I thought this looks like a cool movie. I hope it's not one of those movies that's like It Comes at Night, where it gets mismarketed and everyone fucking hates it. Even though I thought
Yep.
It Comes at Night was good, but A Quiet Place for me, I loved it. I really it's pretty damn close to a perfect movie for what it is. And I never thought that I would look at John Krasinski and go, you can be more than Jim from The Office. Yeah, he carries it. He's so good. Everything about the movie is good. If they did anything to it with a sequel, that would be a terrible, terrible thing, because it's
think
just
they're
perfect
thinking
as
of
it
it.
is. I fucking hope they don't. I'm worried they will, because it's getting such good feedback. I hope that it gets a good reception. But
It's
I hope
almost
they don't
guaranteed
make
a sequel with the reception that the box office is going to make.
Honestly, I don't know where they'd go with it as a sequel. They'd probably have to do like a whole separate thing, like focusing on entirely different stuff, because I just don't see where they could go with it.
Fair enough. All right. So out of 5 stars,
5.
boom. All right.
Yes.
So
Easy.
if you're looking for something to watch at the cinema, that might be the winner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right now, it is the best
Jesse will
movie
have
out there.
a more lengthy written piece for you later in the week, and you'll see that come up on the Facebook and the website. All right, awesome. Thank you, Jesse. We're going to talk a little bit about the future of movies and where it might be going. And I'm going to lead us with some initial thoughts of mine, because I think we can sort of get some discussion off that. And that is, if you look at commercial movies, which have been around since the very end of the 19th century, and cinemas, a lot of how we consume movies has largely been dictated by Hollywood and cinemas, because this is where the money comes from. And while any sort of evolution of watching films has typically had to have been doable through cinema. So digital film, like projection, 3D films, all this sort of stuff had to be doable through a cinema. And so they sort of always dictated the rules. What's changing, though, from what I'm seeing, is one, home technology is getting cheaper and more powerful, so 4K screens, and it probably won't be long till we start seeing we're already seeing 5s coming out, and it won't be long till you're up to sort of 8K screens. But also what's changing, I think, is the likes of Netflix and Amazon, who, I mean, as we've spoken, Amazon is spending $1 billion in Lord of the Rings. That's not going to a cinema. So there's a lot of these big companies spending an awful lot of money to create original content that's never going to hit a screen. And I think we're going to start seeing in the next 10 to 20 years, maybe sooner, a change in how we consume new films. And if it comes home, then that is going to allow a lot more technology, because it's no longer limited by a large screen and 100 seats in a building down the road. And I guess that's sort of where I'm going to leave off and say, well, where do we go from there? If you agree, that is. I mean, maybe, what do you think? Do you think cinemas will forever hold fast because Hollywood has the power? I mean,
well, there was a thing going around a while back that studios were thinking of doing, where you could pay a certain amount of money and you would get that brand new movie just out the cinema, but you would get it in your living room instead.
Yeah, no, I can't remember what that was called. There was a whole bunch of people
movie
backing
pass
that
or something.
idea.
I think there's a movie pass. There's going to be like a home movie pass where you could do that. A bunch of studios were behind it, and then they realized, like, oh no, if we do this, piracy's going to run rampant even more because people are going to have this in their house.
Yeah.
yes.
I think there is still some talks for this now, but it's nowhere near the level of what it originally was a couple of years back when that was first proposed.
Yeah, they would need to
because
find a
originally
way
they proposed that-
to stop it, and it's almost impossible because
No, you can't.
You can't, because
You
they're
can't
just going to
stop it.
record the screen one way or another, whether it's inside the application or whether it's external with, what do they call it, where they put the camera at the screen, whatever I don't know, I don't follow that
Cams.
stuff. Yeah, but like a cam, but I mean a high quality cam, or some sort of hardware AV out. Like there's, you just there's no way you could stop it. And
Yeah.
yes, one person would rent the film and then it would be uploaded to, the internet, and it would be everywhere. Now, having
Well, I
said
think
that,
it's gonna
to be
be
fair,
something-
having said that, you could argue the same point about Netflix.
And you could also argue the same point that the studio's fears of piracy happening on that level are already happening now.
And the thing is, a lot, and it's a fair argument, piracy, but a lot of studies been done to that, and in most cases, the reason why piracy takes place is not due to price, but due to difficulty of access. So Australia pirates the crap out of Game of Thrones because to get Game of Thrones in Australia can be quite difficult. I think you can only get it through Fox Cable, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
Fox
legally.
Legally. You can get it.
Right. So it's just a case of we pirate it because of access. Now, if it was available on, say, Amazon Prime, then we would all just sign up to Amazon Prime. We really, for the sake of $10 a month, right? You would. Now, if a movie is streamed into my house for my family and I to watch over, say, I can rent it for, say, whatever it is, like 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever, right? For $6 or $8 or something. Yes, some people were going to record that, sure. But most people would just pay it and watch the film.
Yeah,
I
same
think.
as people that rent movies through the Foxtel box office.
But the thing is that with this plan they're going to do where you could have the brand new movie in your home, you're going to have to pay $60 or $80 for it.
Yeah, they're saying something like $55 per person
Yeah.
or whatever.
It wasn't just a standard
Yeah.
movie ticket price. It's going to be like $60, something like that.
And wasn't it something to do with it was a markup because either the studio or a cinema chain took a portion of that to try and cover a
think it
loss
was,
so that
something
the
like
cinemas don't go
You
out
could.
of
I mean,
business.
the other thing is you could always watermark. If you watermark the movie with like your credit card information, that's going to stop people wanting to record and share
Yeah,
it.
well, yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? If you have to borrow the movie with your credit card, and then every so often it just randomly appears on the screen. I mean, that's something that like there's things you could do, but ultimately, I think, are we going to go there eventually anyway? Is it going to get to a point where Amazon and Disney home streaming and Netflix have so much money and are creating so much content that the rest of Hollywood has to somehow, tune in, is change their ways? Is it just going to get to a point where they're not making enough money through the cinemas anymore?
I would say probably, yeah. I mean, Netflix is already doing it. Netflix is spending probably, I think they said close to $1 billion or $3 billion on original content just this year alone, which obviously shows that the subscriber count is enough to pay for these high quality movies. They've already got Martin Scorsese doing a new movie with Robert De Niro and the other guy, I can't remember what his name is. But I mean, you've got those sorts of things. So they're already warranting enough for that to not have to release it to the cinema.
Because I mean, you go rewind, say 180, 70, even 60 years ago. Not everyone had a TV in home. Or they either didn't, or because they weren't available, or they couldn't afford one. So people went to the cinema on the weekend. That was how they viewed movies. That's how they consumed movies, because it was the only thing available to them. And then in the 80s we had VHS and everything else. So the world is changing, and how we consume films is changing, and that's why I think, because again, like, I can watch, what's Netflix up to? Do we get 4K Netflix in Australia yet?
I think you can.
On the top thing? Right, okay, so I mean, you can get a 4K film piped straight in, assuming you've got the internet to support it. Oh, thanks, Australia. But you can get a 4K film piped into your house, and you can watch that and any other content as many times as you want for $10 a month. How does New Line Cinema compete with that?
See, that's the thing, is that I've thought about that a lot too. Like, I've had this conversation with people plenty of times, and it seems like a bit of a sad eventuality that cinemas could go the way of video stores
and become niche. You'll have your Dendy cinemas, and you'll have those art house cinemas.
I think that's what will happen. I think that we've been moving in the last 20, 30 years in the direction of comfort, because people are lazy fucks that just don't want to leave their fucking house, which is fine.
How you doing?
Yeah, like, that's fine. But like, as someone that likes the experience of going to a movie and like being in the cinema and being with a bunch of people to see a movie and hearing other people's reactions, like, it's I hope that doesn't die. I'm happy for that to become a niche thing, just like people that go to concerts. But I think that's what's going to happen to cinemas, because people stream music. People don't have to go to live venues.
I think like, you could easily imagine something like Netflix, where you've paid your $10 a month, for instance, and you've got all this content, and then the latest Marvel film arrives, and you just pay a $4 premium, and you have that movie for 24 hours or something. Like, that's believable, right?
Yeah.
And especially if it's already all linked into your account, so I don't have to give you any other information. I just go, do you want this film? Yes. Done. Like, that would be...
I reckon that Disney, when they roll out their streaming service, are going to do early access ticket sales through their version of Netflix. I reckon they're going to be like, get your tickets if you sign up through our subscription service.
Yeah. And that leads me to the next point. Now, if the cinema becomes a niche experience and no longer the default standard experience, and we're now piping films through the internet into homes, then that opens up avenues of new technology that aren't necessarily available in a cinema experience. And one thing that's gotten my attention is virtual reality movies. Now, I've watched 360 movies in a VR headset. That's an very interesting experience.
It is.
It is. I mean, I won't lie. It was pretty much all porn, but that's fine.
Same for me.
But well, that's because they're the ones that are mainly pushing the technology, right?
They're the innovators of our time.
Hey man, look,
my YouTube
the porn industry can make or break a media format. Absolutely, So the point is, it's interesting, and watching being able to turn your head in any direction and see the film unfold. I think if you wanted to be artistic today, like right now, you could do something amazing with that technology, and you can now place an audience anywhere inside of a 3D space per se, and have them, watch the film unravel around them. That's cool. But what I really want to see is the ability, and we sort of, if you've seen behind the scenes stuff with movies like Lord of the Rings and others, where the director has like a digital camera strapped to them, right? And they're filming scenes inside of a virtual space. Have you seen that?
I think so. Yeah.
I know I have because I did.
The HoloLens thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did
Yeah.
So if you can have a director and a crew record stuff in VR, then the ability to play it back in a 3D space where I can move myself around becomes really exciting. So, argument's sake, any film, but let's say Blade Runner, okay? Of course, because there's already but say, okay, so I'm in this scene and I'm in the motel room and Harrison Ford walks in and he says his lines and he starts moving around just as he is in the movie and looking for clues. Now, I can't interact with the scene, but I can put the camera anywhere I want. That is a really interesting experience because it allows me to look at as a movie director. What it will allow you to do is have events unfold in multiple locations at the same time. This creates repetitious viewing because I could say, all right, well, this time I'm going to follow this character, and this time I'm following this character. And you know, what was the Guy Pearce film where he has the memory?
Memento. I was about to say Christopher Nolan's going to be all over this shit.
Like, can you imagine something like that where you can sort of follow particular characters and you sort of follow the lead character first and you're like, cool, okay, this is this, and then you watch the movie again, but you continuously move and follow a different character and you get a completely different point of view on the plot line. That to me, now if you're piping stuff through the internet, that means you can therefore pipe it into a VR helmet. That to me is far more interesting than, say, 3D glasses. Whether it's a case of a static camera and I'm watching a 360 video, or it's literally a 3D built environment, in which case it'll be CG, but with mocap actors and all the rest of it, that I'm able to move through that environment. Both of those to me seem like obvious avenues where film might go. And it's not going to be something you want to do for every film, of course, because a large part of the film telling process, of course, is, you know, I want you to look at this exact moment, and I'm telling you a story based upon what you can see. But I definitely feel that there's going to be potential down both avenues. But what else do you think we might be able to do?
Well, what you just said begs the question of, do you think in the future people's roles in the film industry will start to change and take on more of a complementary role to CG artists? Because say everything moves in a VR direction like you're proposing, CG and digital effects artists will be like the backbone of the entire operation.
I don't think that will be relevant because you've already got technology that allows us to mocap on the set, and that was even work done in the third Lord of the Rings film. I think what's more likely the case is we will just invent 3D cameras that you would basically put in the corner of every room, and it's just going to be able to recreate, and I know they're already working on this stuff.
Like
it would just recreate the entire scene and everything in it real time as a 3D environment. So you won't need to create textures, you won't need to animate. It will just record everything and then turn it into... what gets really interesting then is if you're able to do that on the fly, and now we're talking about some serious processing power, but if you're able to record a scene live, send it through the internet into a virtual reality helmet, I can now move through a space in reality TV.
Yeah.
I'm watching the news, right? I'm at the Olympics, and I'm able to move around virtually. Now you're talking. Mind blown.
The only thing that gets in the way of this, and it's a cynical thing to say, is basically corporate.
Yeah, Hollywood and making money. Yeah.
Basically, people have their own agenda with whatever you're viewing to sell you shit.
But I mean, this is just the movies. Now, again, like imagine if something like Fox Sports, who only pump their media into the home market, say we're going to put a camera on a drone, and we're going to put it above the stadium by about 20-30 meters, and you can watch the game in VR from that location.
See, I reckon if they implement that, they'll implement that for sure, but it will be like the top tier ticket price
to begin with,
because you're basically in the ring or whatever.
Once it gets a foothold, right? Like, let's go back a few years. Who the fuck buys a 4K TV? Right? What are you going to play on it? There was like one Blu-ray that came out. There was that goddamn documentary, right? No one bought a fucking Blu-ray 4K TV because there was nothing to watch but Planet Earth, right? It was a complete waste of time. Now, right? It's not just the TV, it's the computer screens and everything else. Like 4K is becoming more and more common. It's just a case of content. And it's the thing. If the home providers start creating that kind of content, then the cinemas and the Hollywood production companies are going to have to follow suit eventually. Why would I go to a cinema? You're going to argue, why do I go to a cinema if it's, I mean, obviously for yourself, it's the experience. But if I'm talking about purely watching a film, why do I go to a cinema when I can sit at home with either my VR or my, 8K screen and watch the same thing better?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, that's why Netflix has been kicking, like, Hollywood's ass as far as, like, customer satisfaction, because people just naturally don't want to have to go and deal with other people and
exactly
do all that shit.
And you can have it right now, and you don't have to wait, you don't have to line up, you don't have to do it, you just push play, done.
Yep.
You just have to take into account that if you have like this sort of technology, then the consumer has to buy something to be able to support this technology, which means more money on the consumer, like us. We would have to have the money to be able to support this new space, this new like virtual reality thing, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's getting cheaper. 8K TVs are now, 4K TVs are more affordable. Yeah. VR helmets are more affordable.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah, they are.
But let's flip it on the other side for a moment, and Jesse could probably help you. Let's assume for a moment that cinema is here to stay. We've been digesting film pretty much the same way for the last 100 years. Yeah, it's color and the sound is better and the picture quality is better, but nothing's greatly changed in how everything that was changed is behind the camera, so to speak, special effects, that sort of things. But
and they're the only massive change in cinema like chains is the change from film stock to digital projectors. It's pretty much it.
Yeah. So assuming that that doesn't change in terms of progression, and let's say the cinemas are here to stay, how do you think over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years we might evolve, if at all? Or do you think it'll just forever stay the same?
I reckon that cinemas, I don't really see any growing room for cinemas, except for showing a broader range of things. Maybe they might be able to maybe Netflix might end up, like, cinemas might die in 20 years time and Netflix might sweep in and save them and then start, doing like binge watch nights or something where they just play their crap at the cinema. And they might make it even cheaper to come to the cinema to see it, to encourage people to get out of their house to watch Netflix with a group of people, or they might host like viewing parties or something. That's the only thing I can think of for cinemas in the future. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think for me, or what I envision is cinemas are going to have to focus more on the experience, like you say, like the and I know my mother's hometown. She lives in a country town. The cinema had closed, just doesn't getting enough business. It got bought and reopened, and they do things like they show sort of more art house films, but it's very specific films. But they do theme nights and they have morning tea and all this sort of stuff. Like, it becomes that experience. And I think,
I need to make them like a theme park.
Yeah, exactly. You need to offer something that I can't get at home.
Yeah, and like the experience of watching a movie with a bunch of people you don't know isn't appetizing to everyone.
No, having to deal with teenagers and their mobile phones is not something that I look forward to. So yeah,
I didn't look forward to seeing A Quiet Place because I knew it was going to be like a horror thriller, and I was so worried that there was going to be people who were just obnoxious.
Well, I had that when I watched the new Annabelle movie last year.
Oh fucking hell! The people in the It movie with me, I wanted to kill them.
Right. See, that's so, like, and that is a big turnoff for me. Like, a lot of the time, that is the large part of the reason why I just wait for the home release. Because there's these day and age, it's like cinema to home release is like 6 months. That's not a long wait.
Yeah, the normal turnover to disc is like 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, that's not a long wait for me. That's really not a problem for me. So, I mean, obviously, I guess it's going to come down to profits at cinema. And I mean, at the moment, Marvel, for instance, is kicking butt. But we might start seeing less releases. You might only start seeing. I guess that's going to be the warning sign, really. Is the telltale sign is if you start seeing less releases, significantly less releases per annum, apart from sort of some massive blockbusters, then that's when things are changing. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens when Disney comes out. I think it's the end of this year. I believe that's going to be really, really interesting because I think it's going to have an impact.
I kind of have like a doomsday prepper opinion on Disney in that I'm really worried that the fact that Disney has so much power, and especially what they did with The Last Jedi ticket pricing and everything in America.
Yes.
Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah, they tried to control the pricing.
Yeah, and they
which
tried
is
to
very
muscle
reminiscent of sort of
cinema.
the early 20th century cinemas, like it was around the 20s or 30s, and then there was a court case, I believe, with the American government, and they American government came in and regulated the whole thing and said, no, you can't do this.
Yeah, well, Disney is dangerously approaching being a monopoly.
They
illegal.
Yeah.
But
history has shown us the American
ridiculous.
government pre-Trump, I guess, but the American government has not been afraid to break up monopolies, and they did that with Microsoft. So they forced it to split up. So I guess Disney. I think Disney needs to be very careful with its acquisitions going forward.
Yeah. Well, what I foresee in the not too distant future for cinemas, in like the worst case scenario example, is I think that we're going to start getting more a more corporate sort of attitude, because I've noticed over the last 10 years that now pretty much every big blockbuster we get is a Disney movie. Like it's a Marvel movie, or now a Star Wars movie.
Yep.
And if it's not that, it's another massive IP like DC Comics. And we pretty much don't get any Die Hards, any Ghostbusters, any Back to the Futures anymore. We get them, and they're sort of like they're like a category B big movie. It's not an even playing field anymore. It's just everyone knows when the movies drop now, and it's like everyone's cattle, and we're all conditioned to be like, oh, we know when this trailer's going to drop, and we know when Disney's going to feed us a new Marvel movie, and we know we're going to get fed the new Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that cinemas are starting to become kind of like an echo of the 1%, 99% economy thing. Of they're predominantly being controlled by one or a few big groups with their specific movies in mind, and all these little ones, like especially in Australia, we get very few movies that get aired freaking months beforehand in America, and then I struggle to find them anywhere because Australia goes, oh no, it just won't bring enough traffic, so we won't order it, and it's kind of frustrating in that way.
Yeah, I think we get Infinity War early though, don't we, Ethan? Like a day or two.
2 days. 2 days.
Yeah.
See, but then that right there, exactly what you just did then, that is why I think that's going to be the future of cinema, because as evil and insidious as Disney is, with that agenda that I think they're going to do, you just still want to go see their fucking movies.
I do. I mean, I don't have no interest in Star Wars, but I mean, I'm and I didn't see Black Panther, but I'm we're all going to go see Infinity War. But yeah, after Infinity War, when the next one comes, what's that? Ant-Man and the Wasp? Probably won't see that at the cinema, not unless I get nagged mercilessly. That'll be wait 3-4 months, whatever it is, to get the home version. That's fine.
Yeah, see, like
I have less and less desire to get
go
to
see Marvel movies out of some weird agenda that I'm trying to like derail Disney. But I'll still go. I want to see them just for the sake of. I want to see any movie that comes out.
We know you want to derail Disney because you like DC.
Oh yeah, see, I've got.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll go see Sicario. I'll go see Sicario 2 at the cinema because you're paying for my ticket.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Speaking of which, Ethan's seen Die Hard. Has he watched Sicario since the last 2 weeks we spoke?
Oh no, I haven't actually.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. Gotta do that. It's a good movie.
Is it on Netflix?
It is.
It is?
It is.
I don't know about that.
I really do think that I reckon Netflix and Amazon
Shit.
will give the cinemas a good run for their money as far as controlling the monopoly of like viewership. And I think if they do it, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make acquisitions in physical Amazon and Netflix places where they could do what we were saying before, like do viewer nights, do
Yep.
do like kids' birthday parties and stuff, like where there's a big screen, they have a big theme. That'd be a great thing for them.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Or maybe cinemas evolve to the point it's like, well, you know what? There's not enough content on Amazon that I want to, you know, subscribe. But yeah, I mean, maybe you go down to the cinema and see the latest, you know, blockbuster film that they made. On a screen. Isn't that interesting though? How it's not like, I mean, Amazon is not. I mean, let's go back 10 years. Amazon, they don't make films, right? They're a shopping network, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting how the .coms per se are now moving in a very big way into films because it's all, you know, it's all tied up in the internet now.
That's right, and it's also
You know,
I also
YouTube
think
Red,
that
for
it's-
instance. It's
Yeah,
the same
well,
thing,
that's
like-
what I was about to say. I was going to say, I think it is also to do with the fact that they looked at the sheer amount of money that they can make and how vastly unregulated it is.
Yes, that's the
And
other
I
thing.
think that's a, again, I know I sound like a doomsday prophet or something, but I really do think that it is bottom dollar with these companies, and the film
Absolutely.
industry is such a like salacious, very dark world in how much money people make over other people and how much people fuck each other
You
over.
just put the head
So I
office
wouldn't
of,
doubt
you
it.
know, Amazon in you know, the People's Republic of Congo where there's no taxes or something, and you know, good times, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, even Sausage Party got done for not paying its animators right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And not acknowledging them either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like it seems like it's a perfect money pit for companies to look at and go, we can make maximum profit off of this and have like minimum basically minimum regulation or minimum care factor from any other government bodies because they're getting constant revenue from it anyway.
Yeah. Interesting
that's
times. I mean, at least, I mean, I hope to be around for another 20, 30 years, so it should be interesting to see how things change and perhaps see how accurate we are in our predictions.
We'll be living in that Blade Runner future.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it, mate. Maybe we'll start just, you know, we'll ditch the screens and it'll be VR helmets, or it might be holograms. We might just be, you know, experiencing things as a hologram.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if cinemas don't stay the way of a business. Cinemas might end up becoming filmography libraries, in the same way that museums exist.
Well, I mean,
you might go to a
you
cinema.
look at the video game
ask to watch
industry.
a movie on a big screen.
You know what's happening in the video game industry. It's all digital now. We very rarely go down and buy a physical copy. I mean, we do in Australia because our internet's crap, but globally, you know, most people will just buy it. I mean, as PC users, who the freaking hell buys a physical PC game unless you're after the wanky collector's edition? Most of us are just buying it, which is Ethan. Yeah, that was directed at him. But
Yeah,
most
I
of
know
us
it
just hop on Steam and go, cool, done, buy, thanks. And
that's
it's done, preloaded, and away we go. You know, and the only time you really buy something now is, or we is, you know, people who collect retro. It's people who go buy Mario Brothers on the NES. And yeah, you could see movies going the same way. If the cinemas die, you know, it's going to be people like Jesse in 20 years' time picking up that, you know, 12K remake of Ghostbusters.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because they're going to buy a physical copy of something because, especially my generation as well, like, it's been difficult for me to move over to digital because I'm so used to physical collections.
Yeah,
you
same.
know?
Like that's
You know,
that's
my
what
parents
I know.
had vinyl and VHS, and I'm all Blu-ray and DVD and, you know, CDs. I still buy CDs. I bought the Stranger Things soundtrack on CD.
Yeah, I
you
still
know,
buy.
like-
I actually bought I haven't bought a CD much since I was at high school, but I bought
Yeah.
one late last
Your
year.
generation, Ethan, is more likely to just simply accept a digital collection. You know, because you don't. know any different.
And on top of the nostalgia kick thing that you mentioned, it will be. I do think it will be people from my generation and my younger brother's generation that if something happens to cinema, they'll revive it, much like
through retro.
much like the LPs and vinyl records got revived.
Yeah, it'll be
because
cool.
people
It'll be
think it's
trendy.
kitsch.
You're gonna head into the city and you're gonna watch Ghostbusters 1 or 2, and the whole night's gonna be themed.
Yeah, I really do think that if cinemas suffer, they'll stay alive in the niche market that way because retro keeps coming back.
Yep.
And if people
I
actually
would.
like it, then
I would go and see.
people like it
I mean,
that much,
think
and they
about
wanna
how
keep
many
watching retro
movies.
shit.
Think about exactly. Think about how many movies that came out in the 80s. I mean, I might have seen them, but you guys never would have got the chance, right? Now you might have some movies from that time period or even earlier that you love, but never got to see on a big screen. And I guess, look, if you said to me Vicky Point is showing, Labyrinth or Aliens or Big Trouble in Little China or something on the big screen, I'd be in the car, absolutely. So that would work. That would definitely work, and that would get me. I probably wouldn't expect to pay like a $20 premium ticket, being that I have the movie on the shelf at home. But it's again, it comes back to like you saying, it's enjoying the experience with other people, and you know that if you put Labyrinth on a big screen, everybody's going to be singing all the songs. Absolutely. And it's
the same as the Rocky Horror revival nights.
Yeah. So look, that's one way, and I mean that's how I think some of those video game stores still manage to exist today. It's because they're buying and selling retro, because it's it's becoming profitable. So that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Anyway, any other thoughts, or we pretty much summed everything up nicely?
Yeah, summed everything up.
Yeah. Had our conspiracy theories.
Had our tinfoil hats. All right.
Yeah.
Well, for the sing out this fortnight, I thought we might do like 8-bit.
Oh.
All right.
That's not 8-bit.
Yeah, fucked it up.
Oh, man.